This is a topic that's really near and dear to me because I'm going to be completely transparent about this. I didn't grow up in an environment where disagreements were ever productive. Or if they were productive, it was an accident. There was a lot of screaming, shouting, slamming doors, stonewalling, you name it, we did it in my family. So even just reaching adulthood and you know, all of a sudden moving from a family home to having roommates in college, I had to learn really quickly and very often the hard way by people just looking at me like I had three heads, that just wasn't the way that people operated. And it was pretty eye-opening and sort of set me on my journey of self-growth and inquiry, which has, you know, at times been a steep learning curve and it's plateaued and then, you know, keeps growing up. So this is very much an area of passion for me because a lot of what I do now goes completely against what I would have earlier said were like gut instincts or automatic reactions, but I know really were just ingrained behaviors. So it's hugely an area of which I'm passionate about talking about because I know that there are ways that we can disagree with one another and have really great, tremendous, successful discussions. And by talking about success, I'm really talking about coming out on the other side with, you know, in the work environment, perhaps a better plan, coming out on the other side with a better product, coming out on the other side just with a team that trusts one another more because they've been through a disagreement. So go ahead and if you're watching this through the stream, let us know you're here, wave. If you're watching this later, definitely hit hashtag replay so that we can follow up with you and make sure that we answer all of your questions. I love talking about and now going through with teams disagreements because the minute that tension hits in the room, I'm like, ooh, let's do this. What comes out on the other side can be so much better. And that is supported also by the data. If you look at data that is published on teams that really trust one another and individuals that trust their organization, they have been through and go through regularly discussions where there are differing points of view. And that in and of itself is a disagreement. You know, we think about a disagreement, or at least I do in my, you know, very conditioned behavior. I think about a disagreement as a fight. It doesn't have to be a fight at all. It can be, and I'm getting a message that my internet connection is unstable. So I just want to check in and make sure you all can still hear me and get my hotspot ready as a backup. Can everybody still hear me? Did you lose me for a minute?
We can hear you, but it keeps going in and out, Tara.
Does it? Okay. All right. Let me just switch then to make sure it's stable. One second. Thank you for bearing with me. Any questions on sort of my background and my thoughts on disagreements and, you know, where and how I approach it now versus maybe how I would have early on in my career? No questions? All right, I've transferred the internet, so hopefully it will stay stable. Keep me posted if it's not, okay? And Janessa, I see your chat on the side, so thank you. All right, so how do you bring a team through a disagreement in a successful way? There are many steps that we can talk about and we'll go through here. And the first is to recognize that you are approaching what you could call the cliff of a disagreement. You are approaching a point where there are going to be clashing viewpoints and just recognizing that, oh, my team is here. And it may not even be a team that you lead. It might be like, oh, my team is here. And you're a member of this team and you're thinking to yourself, okay, here we are approaching this cliff of a disagreement where things can really bottom out quickly, or we can build a bridge. What are we going to do here and how can I support it? So awareness is always the number one first step, right? Recognizing that you're at this precipice, this chance to build a bridge rather than allow everybody to fall off a cliff of disagreement. The second thing is Analyzing and having a general gauge for the emotional intelligence of the people in the room. You may know so-and-so knows their science inside and out, but in terms of getting along with others, it's not really their strong suit. So maybe, now that you've clued into the fact that this is happening, maybe you're going to have to help that person soften their argument, or keep their argument from ever being personal and more being focused on the science, or whatever that person's strong suit is, what they're bringing to the table. So first thing is recognizing that you're there, that you're approaching a disagreement or perhaps in one now, acknowledging and trying to mentally inventory the emotional intelligence of those that are in this room, and then understanding who you might need to support so that they are acting in a constructive way. Then third, in the event it's getting heated and it's getting heated fast, you might have to jump in, intervene, and say, hey, we need a timeout. Let's talk about this. This is a disagreement. And you know what? Disagreements are tough for teams, but teams that go through a disagreement and come out on the other side are stronger. So I'm saying that so that you all know that this is an okay place for us to be, but it's possible we might need to, approach things in different ways in the event that we can't collaborate and have a constructive discussion. You may even at times need to call for permanent timeout, not permanent timeouts, but more temporary timeouts. So I'm calling a timeout not to interject this about teams. I'll remind you of this, but we're also not going to reconvene until tomorrow because everybody needs some time to cool down. Know that you, regardless of your role on a team, have the right to try and do that. Now, the team leader may, if you're not the leader of the team leader might overrule you. And in the event the team leader themselves is operating from a heated or emotional state, that might be really difficult and you might not be able to have the influence you want, but you can always try, right? Now, if you are leading a team, you are going to want to try and keep the engagement going as much as possible. And the way to do that is to continually focus everybody back on what is the point of discussion? What is the disagreement? Or if it's gotten heated and you're reining it back in, what is the argument about? What is the point that is under discussion? And keeping the group focused on that and keeping them focused on facts, right? There is the possibility that you're going to be arguing somebody's gut instinct about somebody else's gut instinct. And in that case, you're going to want to try and have them bringing as much facts to support their gut feeling as possible. So trying and keeping everybody on point about what the discussion or disagreement is about and keeping them on point to be using facts. These disagreements should never get personal. And in the event somebody's trying to make it personal or bring up past decisions that they think somebody made that were poor as a reason why we shouldn't listen to said person, keep them focused on the moment. So keep them focused on the point that's under discussion and disagreement and keep them focused on facts. Now, it's possible that that person that says and throws out there to the room, but you always make decisions that are always wrong. Whoa, right? That's a bomb. But maybe there's some fact behind that. Maybe there is a team member that has repeatedly made decisions that were poor. That might be a fact that needs to be brought in, but in a much softer and less accusational way. So know that that can happen as well. Keep them focused on the points and on the facts and moderate as you need. You may even have your own point of view that you are pushing or proposing and really bought into. Try and distance yourself from that point of view being the only point of view. The more minds that you have talking about a point of data and deciding what to do with it, whether it's what plan to formulate, what product to release, whatever your particular niche is that you're working in, the more minds you have discussing this, the better chance you have of coming out of this disagreement with a more robust plan, a more robust product, things that are better than they would have been going in. So the more you can sit back and say, you know, am I married to this point of view that I'm coming in with? Or can I be open to the fact that there are other ways of doing things and I want to learn how other people are thinking about different ways to do things? The more open you'll be, and then you'll be helping to foster that environment of more level-headedness, more openness to thinking about different things. And while we're talking about thinking about different ideas, remember that when your primitive brain has sort of hijacked you because you're in a heightened emotional state, your neofrontal cortex actually shuts down, right? So there is almost no way physically that somebody can be really emotionally upset about something and at the same time receptive to listening to other people's ideas. And that's why it's so critical as a team leader, as a manager, as a leader of an organization, or even as a team member who is working to exert influence to make this a productive discussion. It's critical that you keep everybody's head level. Now, we also always know that telling somebody to calm down is usually not going to lead to them calming down, right? It does not work for us to be told to calm down because that is just applying more pressure when you're not already calming your physiological practices. If at all possible, you're going to adjourn. You're going to encourage deep breathing. You might, depending on your comfort level with the group, even just say, all right, everybody, we're not going to take a break from this right now, but we're all going to pause and take 5 deep breaths. That might be something that slows down people's physiological processes and allows you not to actually leave the room and to continue the discussion right away, but to halt the emotional reactivity that can take a productive discussion and a productive disagreement down the wrong path. So I'm just going to pause and see if there are any questions coming in. Janessa, let me know if there are. I'm going to take a sip of water. All right, I think I'm still on, I hope. And everybody can still hear me. Okay, no questions yet, beautiful. All right, we'll keep going then. All right, so you want to identify it, right? You want to call it what it is. You might need to call it out for everyone and even let everyone know, reframe the situation, because who knows what path they're coming into. Maybe in your organization, there are teams that do get into strong disagreements and they're uncomfortable discussions. You might want to interject and let everybody know that it's okay that we're here. You know, this might feel uncomfortable, but the outcome of it is going to be so productive that it's worth moving through. We're going to be a stronger team because of it. You're going to want to call out the fact that you want to keep emotion out of it as much as possible, which is hard when people are passionate about their ideas. And it's okay to be passionate about your idea or your point of view, as long as you are being respectful of others and being open to considering others' points of view. You're going to want to call timeouts whenever needed. You're going to want to encourage people to keep their physiological processes from being reactive. So that means making sure people are taking time to breathe deeply and not react and have their heart and their breath really shallow, but rather take time to pause and breathe before responding. And you might be even able to do that in a joking way. You know, I was in a discussion with somebody once and it was pretty heated. There were a couple of us in there and someone said something and the other was about to respond. And I said, hey, you know, I won't use their name. Hey, so-and-so, before you respond, how about you just take a few deep breaths? I know that was really, really big, what was just dropped. You know, so you can kind of joke around with it and acknowledge that it's uncomfortable, but important for all of us to be going through. And then, you know, as you are working with your team and there's a disagreement, identify where you all are on the same page, because there is always a line of common interest where everyone's on the same page. It might be a really thin line or it might be a thicker line, and that depends on the topic. And, you know, even with the most heated discussions, there is always a point of overlap, even if it's just, we want the product that we're delivering to be the best it can be. Do we all agree on that? Look for areas where there is common agreement, and whenever possible, or whenever you need to in the discussion, bring the team back to that. So, you might be discussing or disagreeing over some finer point of the product, but if you've already established with the team and you can go back to the team to say, hey, we all agree that we want this to be the best product it can be, right? That's something we agreed on at the beginning. Now, how do we get there? What of this, feature makes it a better product, or what of this feature makes it a better product? And if we're disagreeing over which feature to add, maybe what we need to do now is evaluate, factually what makes the feature, which of the features makes it a better product. Let's bring us back to our common agreement that as a team, we all want to make this the best product. So I hope that example works. I'm just gonna pause and see if there are any questions specifically about that.
Once, Tara, I had to take someone for a walk outside. Is that all right? And then the other instance was I took them in a room and I made them run really fast on the spot 10 times to get the anger out. And then this lady was okay. Are those methods all right?
I ask you, did they work for you?
It did for her temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
And the walk definitely did.
Yeah.
But I've been in a few heated situations.
Right. Yeah. I think that you always want to be cognizant that you can't force somebody to do something, right? It's always great to say, hey, you're really heated right now. What do you need? And they might not know. They might not be able to answer that. And they might need to go off and figure that out on their own. The running really fast in a room, that's interesting. And I would have loved to see how that even came about. But hey, kudos to you. That's awesome. The one caution that I do have with, and this, I'm saying you, but whoever's in this position, taking someone for a walk, is, does that ever tell the room or make the room wonder that there's like an additional discussion happening, and maybe that person's getting to advocate for their view in a private forum where I don't get to be there? If there's two people that are disagreeing and you pull one out and take them for a walk, does that other person left there feel as though they're not getting the same face time to present their discussion, especially if you're the team lead? Now, if you're the team lead and your team's disagreeing and you're not ruling one way or another, that's because, as a team, as a collective team, you have to make a decision together. You, even if you're in a team leadership position, will not dictate and determine the outcome of the discussion. The team has to determine that. That's another thing that you might have to highlight for them, especially if they seem to be deferring to you to make sort of like a judgment or a ruling. If you're like, hey, no, this is a team decision, I am not going to rule one way or the other. I am just one of the casting votes. Then all of a sudden it becomes more of a discussion. And regardless of your role, I'd just be cautious that if you're taking someone for a walk, that there's any sort of, concern from the remainder of the people in the team or the group that they are not getting the face time to justify their points as they might want. So it might be better to send somebody on a walk, but not to necessarily take them on a walk yourself.
Well, this person was in tears, and this is a grown man. So it was kind of diffuse the situation.
Yeah, no.
And then it turned out it wasn't problems with the team. It was problems at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why it got emotional.
Yeah. We never, that's the thing, unless we know our people really well, and we never know everyone completely. Like, we don't know what baggage they're carrying. We don't know what happened that makes today different, and where we're feeling more, or where they're feeling more vulnerable than they would on any other day. We don't necessarily know all of those ins and outs. And even if we do, we might not be tuning into it. So in that situation, if somebody is really feeling that emotional, and not so much anger, but actually feeling the vulnerability and the breakdown, that's of course the caring thing to do, right? Whereas if you're taking somebody for a walk who's angered, you might not actually want to take them for a walk. You might want to send them on a walk, to keep the level set of the room the way that you want. And so, I think it's all, like everything, a matter of reading the situation and trying to respond in the right way. And sometimes we don't, sometimes we respond in what we think is the right way. And it turns out in hindsight wasn't. And you know what? It's a lesson. We are all always growing. But the situation as you presented it makes it sound like that was exactly the right thing to do in that situation. Yeah. And I'm really curious and want to learn more about the woman that went running or that you made do sprints in a room. I love that. So one other thing, and I think I've mentioned this, level setting for your team, that disagreements are a good thing. Disagreements should actually be welcome, and we're going to come up with better ideas and better plans, better products, whatever your thing is. They are going to be better when we disagree more often. And that might at face value just seem wrong and uncomfortable, and everybody just wants to keep the status quo. But the fact is, the more that teams go through disagreements in a positive way, the more people that have a differing point of view in the future, the more they feel comfortable raising their hand and saying, hey, I actually don't agree with that. I think we should do it this way, and this is why. They have seen it happen. And now you're going to start to get teams that don't mind challenging one another, because they know that challenges and disagreements can happen in a way that is ultimately successful for the team. Now, one thing that you do have to be cognizant of and occasionally work on with individuals is cultural differences. People from different cultures interact differently and come to organizations with different mindsets about what is respectful and what is not respectful. And I approach this very much from an American standpoint, where you can have disagreements and still respect more established people in the organization. You can still respect your peers in the organization and disagree with them. And you can respect people from all levels, basically, and respect their positions and still have disagreements. You may have people on your team where that is not inherently their understanding and their comfort level. Maybe they even know intellectually that, yeah, now I'm in this environment, and in this environment, this is what I do. But they're also perhaps battling 20 or 30 years of conditioning to tell them they can't do that. So, if you have somebody that comes from a culture where they do not feel comfortable speaking up, and they have a differing point of view, you might actually want to consider how you could support them in voicing that differing point of view and being open to that discussion and dialogue, without them needing to be perhaps the one that brings up the issue. You may position it as, this was the game plan, and this idea has come up from a team member, and now we're going to debate it. And that way it's not that person standing by that idea initially, but the team is still debating the idea. Because always what you want to bring your team back to is, you're not debating a person, you're not debating emotion, you are debating an idea. And finally, the one thing that I want to say, which is one of my favorite things to do, and this I'll give you hopefully a crystal clear example of, is when you have a team that is disagreeing on something and it seems you really can't reach resolution, I like to invoke what I call debate club. And I don't know if anybody has any experience or understanding of debate club. I actually did not ever participate in debate club. And in hindsight, I really regret that I didn't do that more. But debate club is something that you do in like middle school, high school. And basically you are given these random topics to debate, and you are assigned a side of the argument or the discussion. And it doesn't matter what you really believe, you are assigned a particular side, and your job is to debate that side and to advocate for that side. And so when I invoke debate club in a disagreement with a group, what I'm basically saying is, okay, we are taking our own personal opinions out of this now. And so let's give an example, because this will probably be the easiest way to explain it. So back to that group that is working on a product and feature A is advocated by one person and feature B is advocated by another person, there's only time to add one feature and you need to release this product and the team is disagreeing about which feature to add, okay? You've brought everybody back to the fact that you all agree you want to release the best product possible and there can only be one feature added. You've gone through and tried to quantify which feature would make the product better. And you know what? You haven't been able to get to a resolution. Well, now you invoke debate club. And basically you take everybody that wanted feature A and you say, okay, we're playing debate club now. You have to debate for feature B. You are now on the team that wants feature B. And everybody that wanted feature B, you are now on the team that's advocating for feature A. It's your job to defend the reasons and the rationale why feature A should be the feature added. And this is so interesting because it very often takes us out of our typical brain pattern of advocating and only seeing our point of view. It forces us into the opposing point of view. And now not only thinking about the opposing point of view, but advocating for it. You know, okay, so now I believe that I have to believe, right? I'm pretending, not I have to believe, but I'm pretending that I really want feature B. Why do I want that? Let me try and defend that. And all of a sudden you're thinking about it differently. And it takes some of the discussion pressure off because no longer are the people in the group really talking about what they want. They're talking about what the other side wants and why they want it. And it's just amazing what it can do for a team and what it can open up. And sometimes you end up in these team meetings that, you know, you've now just done 20 minutes of debate club and everybody's laughing. And, you know, all the people that wanted feature A that have now advocated for feature B are like, you know what, actually, I want feature B. And all of a sudden it answers the collective question that you've been disagreeing about in a way that is much more natural and just a lot more fun and shows teams that you can actually have a shit ton of fun while you disagree about something. And that just makes everybody enjoy their job a lot more. So the final point that I'd like to recommend is invoking debate club. And you know, the first time that you bring it up, depending on your group of people, you might have a lot of resistance to it, but it's really easy to do. It doesn't require any, you know, sort of intervention from an outside consultant or anything. It's simply, you want this, so we're going to actually ask you to advocate for this. You want X, we're going to actually ask you to advocate for Y. Now you need to just put on your hat and pretend that you are advocating for Y, think of all the reasons and start talking about those. And it changes the way that we're thinking about things. It changes the energy in the room and it just creates such interesting dynamics. And people seem to learn really quickly by just being put in sort of that play, that mock scenario. All right, I'm going to pause again. And again, you know, if you're watching this later, definitely hit hashtag replay so that we know that you are here and that we can follow up and make sure that we answer any questions you have. Disagreements are not a bad place to be. It means your team is thinking. And that's what we really want, right? We don't want robots. We want people that are thinking about things, even if they're thinking different things, especially if they're thinking different things, because that's how we innovate. That's how we come up with more creative ideas, stronger plans, better products, all of those things. It's by engaging in disagreement and looking at opposing points of view and figuring out how to weave it all together. All right. So if there aren't any questions, I'll close out for today. Thank you all for joining Thursday instead of Wednesday. And we'll be back next week at our regularly scheduled time. So noon Pacific time on Wednesday, we are talking about knowing where you want to go. And as we wrap up the first quarter of 2021, can you believe that? We are finishing the third month of 2021. That's a great thing to think about. You know, you may be goal setting in your organization, or maybe you did already goal set and you're doing a quarterly check-in or a monthly check-in for knowing where you want to go. So next week, we will be talking all about that. And as always, come with your questions, come with your ideas. The more that we have discussion, the better these trainings are for everybody because differing points of view are brought in. So I'll just check one last time if there are questions, and if not, I will close it down for today.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you. All right. Have a wonderful evening and rest of your day, and we'll all talk next week on Wednesday. Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.